Hey everybody, this is Nate. I help lead the ecosystem for Moonbeam. It's been, I don't know, probably a month since I hosted one of the multi-chain sessions, but I am excited to be here today with Andrey from Zircon. And so yeah, Andrey, do you mind give me a take on you, your background? I know you, but why don't you introduce yourself to the crowd and what got you into the space?
Sure. Thank you for hosting the cross-chain spaces. First of all, yeah, I guess was kind of a last minute change, but it's fine like this, you know. About me, I am in crypto for about 5 years now. So since like early 2017, I got into it mostly because I wanted to make money with mining. But as I kind of dove deeper into it, you know, I just became like really entranced with everything that it's enabling, and kind of been using crypto for its intended purpose of, like, let's say, cross-border transfers since the very first days. Yeah, like later I got into kind of a professional career in crypto, started with some marketing stuff, and later moved into journalism, where, well, my kind of highest thing of note is that I was a journalist and editor at Cointelegraph for a couple of years during the bull run. And witnessed a lot of things. And that was actually right around the DeFi boom, you could say, like the DeFi summer. I was reporting a lot about things. And yeah, I mean, got to talk to a lot of teams building in the space and just kind of gave me an itch to do something of my own. And one of the things that I was particularly talking about was, you know, impermanent loss, AMMs, and just DEXs in general. And yeah, I mean, I've seen during that time a few solutions and kind of understood, like studied them a bit and realized why they didn't work. And, you know, just decided I want to do something with this. I want to fix this issue. And another
Cool.
year or so of tribulations, here I am.
Yeah, I mean that's where we actually first met. And
Yeah.
to tell the honest, the last minute change that he mentioned was Francisco was supposed to host this. You were going to get
Yeah.
a much more eloquent person to host this, but you're stuck with me, so I apologize. But yeah, that's where we actually met, Andre. I remember I think you interviewed us or Derek or Katie or somebody on the team, and I remember that's where we met you probably 2 years ago, and so. Uh,
Yeah.
when you kind of pivoted to build Zircon, it was awesome, and it was awesome to see that
Mhm.
you had a front row seat to all the ecosystems out there, and you were doing a bunch in the DeFi space, but also just in the crypto and
Yeah.
general space. And so for you to want to come build in Polkadot, but also in Moonbeam, I think
Yeah.
for us that was a good we felt like that was a really cool. I don't know. I guess we could say win, right? Having somebody who's well versed across the ecosystem and picking Moonbeam
No,
was certainly cool.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I just always saw Polkadot as kind of this ETH 2.0 that was supposed to happen. We got something else in the meantime, but obviously, well, Polkadot kind of expanded that vision as well, and I think it's really like, it just feels like the most senseful thing to me. You know, just the ones that actually has the highest potential to scale later on. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. No, that's awesome. And so you kind of touched on it. I know you haven't. You'll introduce Zircon, but I think you touched on the issue of impermanent loss. And so before you
Mhm.
kind of go too deep, you can do it however you want. Whether you want to kind of jump into Zircon a little bit and talk about the platform, or whether you want to talk about let's just set up what is impermanent loss and why is it impactful.
Uh,
I'll leave it up to you to kind of take it through potentially both those topics.
yeah, that's a good point. I think, well, usually you would start like a pitch with a problem and then the solution. So I guess I'll go like that. So, yeah, I mean, impermanent loss, I actually held a presentation about this on Moonbeam Illuminate, the conference a few weeks back. And you can actually check it out. We shared it on our posts, on the social media, etc. But basically, there's a lot of misconceptions flying around on impermanent loss. Like, a lot of people say that it's because arbitrage traders are doing their thing, and when they do that, they are extracting money from the liquidity providers, and that's where impermanent loss comes from. And just to kind of set the stage from the very start, impermanent loss is something that makes you lose money in relative terms compared to holding the same kind of tokens that you put into the pool outside of it. So if you just hold it in your wallet, oftentimes the more the prices change, it's much more likely that even despite the fees, you will actually have gained by just holding those tokens idle in your wallet instead of putting them in a liquidity pool. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge issue for anyone who supplies liquidity into AMMs, quite simply because I mean, I think the one that hurts the most is the one where you actually missed all of the profits of a bull run, because when you have some tokens, you kind of assume that eventually they're going to go up, right? So the fact that you're missing all those gains and you're diluting your portfolio in half because you always have to supply both sides, that really, I think it's what made AMMs a little bit like not optimal compared to some other things. So like passive liquidity, it's like the great kind of the holy grail. Like AMMs enable this, where you as a regular person can just supply liquidity and create a market. While normally on regular exchanges, this is done by market makers, some like Alameda, like all of these others that failed. So it's like a very professional, very hard to get into business, and AMMs do this for you, but you also have to deal with this impermanent loss. And well, to kind of sum up why it happens, it's not arbitrage, because if you go into it, it's a bunch of mathematical formulas that basically you can predict your impermanent loss no matter what the price is. So you have like a starting pool, you have the formula, and with that formula, you can just know exactly how much money you'll have inside that pool. And if you thought that this was because of arbitrage, how could you know exactly how much you would get? And especially on a pool where there is no arbitrage, maybe it's the only pool ever. How could it be about arbitrage? So, and the real thing is that it's kind of a natural outcome, but the passive liquidity AMM, like Uniswap V2, is the most optimal for impermanent loss. It has the lowest impermanent loss that you can get, but it's still not great. So I guess that's where we kind of came from. So our first thing was actually just, we didn't want to revolutionize the world or anything. Like, we figured impermanent loss is impossible to fight. So let's just make the next best thing, which is single-sided liquidity. So instead of having to split your portfolio, you supply only one token and you get matched with another guy who has the other token, and he also wants to earn some fees on it. And so you kind of do 1 + 1, and both of you get to enjoy those fees, and both of you stay in kind of your starting tokens. So you don't need to take risks that you don't want to. And basically, as we started developing this, we realized that our solution also needed, in order to make the single-sided liquidity work, basically, we had to come up with this concept, which is really the secret sauce, let's say, of our system, which is called the Zircon pylon. And the secret sauce is that we consider all deposits as equal, basically. So it doesn't matter like if you're supplying 100% in one token or maybe 50-50 of both, excuse me. It's all the same value, and so we let you supply those tokens anyway. And the moment you supply those you supply 50-50, you're kind of rebalancing the pool essentially to reduce the impermanent loss, because you're supplying that extra, let's say, glimmer or something that got lost due to impermanent loss, but you're not taking a position on it. You're just instantly selling it to USD or something. And it's a little bit complex, I guess, to grasp, but basically with this solution, we both reduce your impermanent loss to basically zero. It's not a guarantee, it's variable, but it worked to reduce it to zero. And we also give you like the choice of your token, and that's how it works essentially.
Gotcha. So let me just make sure that I fully understand it. So instead of traditional AMMs where there might be farms where you provide liquidity to both sides of the tokens that you're farming against, in this scenario with Zircon, I could come and say, well, I have Glimmer, and on the other side it might be USD, or USDC, but I'm just providing the Glimmer. So you match it to someone else who says, hey, I have a bunch of USDC, but may not have Glimmer. You match that together, and that's where you're kind of you're mitigating that potential loss or risk, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's the basic concept, and then there's some other kind of hijinks, but essentially, like this system of like you supply 50/50 and you get back all in USD or all in Glimmer. It also enables a really cool thing, which is a kind of, you can call it a smart swap. So it's basically a swap without slippage. And I mean, we've been using it to great effect as well. So you can just like, you join the pool, and then to exit, you can actually choose to get it like 50/50 as the pool has right now. And so that means that you can actually swap 50% of your assets into the other. And since there is no actual swap happening inside the pools, there is no price impact. And you can think of it as basically an AMM with based on an oracle. So it reads the price of the pool and then tells you like, this is the price, this is how much you can swap. And it's essentially, yeah, with no slippage, so no price impact.
Very cool. Very cool. No, I've obviously kind of looked into it, but it's always good to understand some of the other benefits
Mm-hmm.
that you guys can provide kind of right out the gate. So, how has building been going? Tell me about kind of you guys are deployed on Moonriver today, but you're
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to a Moonbeam deployment shortly. So,
Yeah.
how has building been going? What's the roadmap look like? Give me kind of a timeline.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we actually have a kind of a complex plan in that sense. So, like, we launched on the river. It's been going well, about as well as you could expect with this market. And obviously, the deployment on the river was extremely useful to kind of testing the system in the real world, understanding like all of the kind of quirks and stuff. So, I mean, I can't tell you that it has been like with zero issues whatsoever, because that's not true. But we definitely learned a lot and kind of calibrated the system for something a little bit more serious, you could say. And so right now it's basically ready. The interface is nice. It works. It has a lot of like additional features that not every DEX has either. And we're still definitely working on more. So I can tell you, for example, that we have a front end in beta that will use the precompiles. So like the feature you guys released, which basically allows us to completely avoid having to first do approvals of tokens. Like how you always need to like two transactions, first to approve the token, then to actually swap it or to supply liquidity. And it's really annoying, right? So with Moonbeam, we can actually, Moonriver, we can actually completely eliminate that step. So it's all one click, you swap, one click you supply liquidity, one click you remove. Nothing, no UX issues anymore with that. So that's one thing. On the cross-chain side, so we actually have the Zircon Pro deployment, which is basically going to be a kind of more sexy, you could say, version in the sense of like centralized exchangey version of Zircon, because we have like this thesis of having two kind of products with two different target markets. So Zircon Gamma is going to be a lot closer to what Uniswap is, to Sushi. So it's like kind of the classic DEX experience, you could say. And of course, we're going to have more features for it as well, like an option protocol built on top of impermanent loss. And that's one thing, and it's going to have kind of a life of its own, you could say, even so it's actually going to go cross-chain as Zircon Gamma as well. And on the Moonbeam side, then we have Zircon Pro, which is going to have a more complex interface with like advanced order types, so limit orders, stop loss, and it's also going to have this cool feature that we're cooking up right now, which is basically the concept of a NFT profile. So basically, usually your wallet is your profile in a DEX. Here we wanted to kind of like get a little bit extra from that, because you can't do too many things on just the wallet, because the wallets are extremely interchangeable. Well, if you do like set up this kind of NFT that maybe you have to stake something for it to get it, maybe you have to acquire a certain amount of volume, and this unlocks many cool features such as basically referral links, which are, for example, stored as an NFT, so you can actually then sell it if you want. So sell all your portfolio like of referrals. You can have margin trading that is a lot simpler, so you don't need to go to like do 5 cycles of levering up on something like Moonwell. You can just click once and you have a margin because you have collateral in that NFT. And like all these things, like we're still like kind of even fleshing out. You can have additional rewards, additional things, but basically even social features like copy trading, etc. And it's all going to be based on this concept of the NFT, which really creates like a unique, you could say, one-to-one relationship between the user and the platform. And of course, all decentralized, all kind of still within the blockchain. So yeah, lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, that's super cool. I didn't realize. So, I'm always intrigued at like new NFT use cases and in a way
Mm-hmm.
that gets away from just, PFPs and things like that, but actually enabling like real use
Yeah.
cases where like activities can be done only by, certain
Yeah.
certain people who've qualified for something or done something. So, that's amazing. I didn't realize you guys were kind of focused on that. So that'll be is that really just for like finding higher value customers essentially in terms of like just the
Yeah.
more they interact with the system, the more they can get out of it? Is that really kind of the end goal?
I mean, to some extent, yes. Like our goal is actually to kind of replicate what happens on centralized exchanges, where you know you go on an exchange because it's kind of you have an account there, you have some liquidity there, so it's like there's a lot of friction of switching between one exchange and the other, and that's like how you could say, like, it's obviously it's better to have everything composable in one sense, but in the other you really want to create like this one place where the trader goes and finds everything, and this is a way to essentially for the user to kind of grow with the platform, to have additional rewards from the platform based on the usage, as you said, and eventually Zircon can become kind of this central place of trading activity in the DeFi space, um, for whatever, essentially as a Binance, you could say. So it has all the tokens. It has a lot of choices of what you can do with those tokens. While if you do like composable protocols, I mean, that also has its value, of course, but you don't really have control over kind of the user experience there. So if you do, for example, margin trading in DeFi, it's really, really not easy to set up. While on a centralized exchange, it's like literally one click, there you have leverage. So this kind of stuff is, I think, it was holding back DeFi a little bit, and there were protocols doing and trying to fix this. But again, like they're their own protocols, so they're not like if you use Uniswap, you have to discover that this protocol exists, which is not really that easy. So that's really kind of our vision of a little bit against the grain, maybe of DeFi, but still fundamentally, it's still going to be decentralized.
Gotcha. And what so I'm sorry if I missed it. I hope I didn't. But in terms of like timeline for some of these new features,
Mm-hmm.
what are you guys looking at?
So, I mean, right now we are definitely still 100% on Zircon Gamma. Um, I could say that as Zircon Pro, we're like starting to kind of do the designs and features, etc. We definitely don't want to like wait too long, so we kind of release an MVP and then just like iterate on that. So I could tell you probably like between Q1 and Q2, we are likely to launch on Moonbeam as Zircon Pro. But obviously, again, like in the meantime, there's still Zircon Gamma, and unlike like I've seen a lot of projects in between like Kusama and Polkadot, that once the Polkadot project has launched, it's difficult to find like two, you could say, coherent product visions for those two things. So usually it's like one is just a kind of a big brother copy of the other, and so the smaller one just gets left behind. And to me, that feels kind of like just something that kind of has to change in a sense. And luckily for us, there is like a product vision you can actually assign to the two things that is different and meaningful. So as I've said, like all of this stuff about the NFT profiles on Gamma, it's not going to be there. It's going to be kind of classic composable. So it's up to you which one you choose, really.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's it the Kusama versus Polkadot discussion seems to continue to like evolve, and I think it will. I think it'll continue to change in that like we've seen it on Moonriver versus Moonbeam. Some have
Mm-hmm.
prioritized Moonbeam, some have prioritized Moonriver, and so I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
for us, like I think there are kind of a couple different communities, but then you obviously see, I think what Kusama, I think, is kind of branding themselves today as.
Hmm.
And it's definitely it's an interesting scenario that I'm pretty intrigued by of how it's going to play out over kind of the next year, the next 2 years, and what it looks
Yeah.
like. But I still see a tremendous amount of value in Kusama and Moonriver because I just think it gives teams a great place to kind of experiment and try different things and add features
Hmm.
and curate kind of a maybe a different audience than might be present on
Yeah.
Moonbeam. So
No, I
yeah.
think to that point, I would say that like if anyone is building, especially if you're like kind of a small team, maybe go on Moonriver first, even if it, like even compared to Ethereum and stuff like that, because it's like kind of a lower stakes playground. You have a very loyal and fantastic community, and they're just gonna support you as you kind of stumble through just delivering something to production, you could say. And once you're done with that kind of um, experience, you could say, like you're ready to really tackle everything else, and you've learned so much. And I think that has been kind of the same for a lot of like Kusama parachains, for example. Maybe the first time wasn't like and then the second time they really like just everything is smooth, everything is great. So yeah, just I would recommend, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've seen we've seen it happen. I mean, even just with Moonriver and Moonbeam. I mean, the amount we
Yeah,
learned when getting Moonriver launched and then launching Moonbeam, it was very straightforward. It was pretty seamless
yeah.
because we'd already gone through everything, and you kind of
Hmm.
already smoothed out a lot of the rough edges,
Yeah.
which I think is great. But cool. Well, I mean, we can shift gears a little bit for the next couple of minutes. I'd love to hear your take on just like the space, the industry, what you think the next year is going to look like, and things that maybe you're excited for, or what you're maybe what you're scared of. But I'd love to open it up to just kind of a more broad crypto discussion for a couple minutes, if that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, I mean, I'm not how to say, like an oracle. I would say that, like, to me, this seems a little bit like the end of 2018 when everyone was like super desperate. Oh no, crypto is gonna die. Like, the SEC is gonna clamp down on every single ICO, etc. And so I'm feeling a lot of this kind of fear right now. So people, I think, are a little bit too pessimistic, I could say. Like, I can tell you, like, my thesis for joining crypto in 2017 is that it didn't die in 2015. And if it didn't die then, didn't die in 2018, it's certainly not going to die now. But beyond that, I think, I mean, I don't know what's the next primitive going to be, like the next great thing, you could say. I'm really super kind of excited about the work done in the ZK space. So, um, because from an infrastructure perspective, we need private smart contracts, private scalable smart contracts as well. But like the privacy aspect is obviously very, very valuable, not just because, not from an ideological perspective per se, but even just to have private storage of smart contract data. You can enable things like wallets that are based on your password without having to deal with private keys ever again, for example. So that's from like a tech standpoint, I'm really super excited about, and I know that there are some projects on Polkadot as well working on this, and I'm sure that eventually, once it's kind of ready, we can all like kind of jump over to that next new shiny thing, you could say. From a DeFi perspective, I think, yeah, I mean, I think actually a lot of like AMMs have been underexplored so far. I feel like they're the only true innovation in DeFi, in my opinion, because everything else is just kind of a rehash of what we've seen in TradFi. But AMMs, they never really existed at this scale, and people say they suck, that they're inefficient, etc. But I think that it just kind of a different uses for it. So AMMs are great at one thing, but bad at the other. And specifically, they're great at like just creating liquidity for small tokens. They're bad at creating like maybe liquidity for big tokens, but even that I think can be improved a bit. And so yeah, in DeFi, I see a lot of evolution of AMMs, options, perpetuals, certainly a thing as well. And then we'll see. Hopefully, you can move into some kind of real world uses. But actually, I don't think like real world assets, how you go maker, are the thing that's going to do it. I feel like it's more DeFi creating utility in a real world context. So it's I don't know, like you can't take a loan somewhere, but you take it in DeFi. So this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree with everything. You kind of touched on it. I think you probably understand the AMM market better than I do, but I think from like a ZK perspective, I do believe that's kind of the next wave potentially. And so you mentioned there are teams in the ecosystem like Manta who we're
Mm-hmm.
working with. I think they're creating something very unique and cool to really kind of drive the privacy aspect of
Yeah.
what I think is lacking in crypto right now. So I would agree. I'm super excited about some of the ZK stuff. I know that Starkware as
Mm-hmm.
well as ZK Sync are getting ready to, I think, go live in the next 3 months or something along those lines, which those have been building for a long time. So it'll be pretty cool to see if they can really execute on what what they've been building for such a long
Yeah.
time. I would also agree that the real world asset stuff I am pretty interested in that if you can start to like the team at Centrifuge is doing, if you can start to kind of
Mm-hmm.
bring real world assets on chain and be able to kind of mix the two worlds of DeFi and CeFi in some ways that you're I just think
Mm-hmm.
we need to expand the market from just kind of like just DeFi or DeFi power users
Yeah.
moving things forward to be able to like bring another audience and bring more people and bring more institutions in. And so I do think that there's some world where these kind of real world assets can start to drive potential
Mm-hmm.
adoption into
Yeah.
the crypto scene. And I don't think it's going to be necessarily on like the at least early days. I don't think it'll be like the what do I call them? Maybe not like the blue chip, big massive institutions, but I do think in
Yeah.
maybe smaller countries or things along those lines where maybe getting access to broader markets is harder for some of
Yeah.
these RWAs. I think that's going to be pretty impactful for them. And if you can start to show, hey, this actually works, and you're able to just show that like the thesis
Mm-hmm.
of that actually stands up to what you've been claiming. I think that could be a good catalyst for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, not to be like, didn't want to be too negative to like, bringing RWAs over. Um, I could say that like I just kind of see that it's like it would be, for example, super cool if the deed to your car, to your house, whatever, was somehow maybe backed by an NFT. So it was like super simple to sell it, super simple to buy it, and this kind of stuff. But obviously, that's like a super mature late stage stuff that's only going to happen when everybody's using crypto otherwise. And I feel that to get there, there has to be, like, as you've mentioned, like something where like the real world is not doing somebody justice, and that's where crypto can step in. But unfortunately, I don't exactly know what that's going to be. So maybe like in the next few years, somebody will come up with it.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it all comes back to. I think it all comes back to how do you onboard users in a way that you're not asking them to store their own mnemonic potentially, or do it in a way where
Yeah,
it's like you said, you can have a password, but behind the scenes it's a mnemonic that somebody doesn't have to actually know. I just can't. Even in my personal life,
yeah,
folks that aren't in crypto, explaining how to go set up a MetaMask wallet, though it's very easy, to them it sounds like it's like I don't know, advanced algebra in many
yeah,
ways, because it's not like the concept itself isn't, if you break it down for them, isn't like the biggest or most like monumental task, but I think it's just kind of like they've never had to do anything like that before. And so when you ask someone, even if it's an easy task, to do something for the first time, it it can be scary, it can be overwhelming, it can be kind of like a, why do I have to do this, this is stupid, I should be able to do
yeah,
it the way I wanted to in the past. And the only way to get there is by enabling things like single sign on and stuff along those lines, which
yeah,
it takes a long time to build it properly in the background, where you can use things like single sign on to be able to access wallets and whatnot, where where then you can really start to, I think, drive that mass adoption where everybody's just using crypto. They may not even know they're using crypto, but they are. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm excited for. All right, cool. Well, look, we usually go 35, 45 minutes, so we're right in that range. Was there anything that I didn't bring up today that you wanted to touch on, let the audience know about, or anything about trying to engage with Zircon, or things that you're excited about?
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure you touched upon everything. I mean, we could go into like the details of impermanent loss and stuff, but I think maybe for another time. No, I think
Yeah.
maybe if the audience has some questions, I don't know, like it usually never happens, but you never know.
Yeah, sure. If anybody's got questions, feel free to put your hand up. We can bring you up and answer questions. But I would say that in terms of the impermanent loss kind of deep dive, I know you did that at Illuminate a couple weeks ago, and all of those are recorded and online, and people would probably get a better sense of it, because in that I think you have like presentations to show and stuff like that versus just kind of talking through it.
Yeah, it's a complex subject, so it's like,
yeah, I love that.
but yeah, like in that presentation, I basically like just to kind of give a heads up, like I basically like break down what is impermanent loss, why it happens, why like kind of maybe some common wisdom stuff. So like maybe people will say, I don't know, like terms like adverse selection and toxic flow, etc. So like a lot of studies from traditional market making, and I mean they're not all wrong, but it's just like it's I think overcomplicating things, and then I come up with like I basically describe how you can reduce impermanent loss today as a user without necessarily using Zircon. It's just like something very similar to what we do in kind of a mathematical sense. And I don't think that many people are talking about it, but it really does work because it's kind of based on option theory, you could say. And it involves like using Aave and Uniswap. Again, like as I said, you can only do this on Ethereum right now, but that's pretty much what Zircon enables. And I think it would be really cool to, if you want to kind of dive deeper, to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we Moonbeam is kind of entering this phase, especially with Zircon and some of the other projects that are getting closer to launching, to having what I'd call kind of like DeFi 2.0 primitives start to go live, which is really exciting. Today we've got what I call kind of the 1.0s, whether it's the DEX, the standard AMM DEXs, and like lending and borrowing markets, which are critical kind of building layers that are needed to fuel any kind of DeFi ecosystem. But we have been, we're seeing that you guys, along with some of the others, are getting closer and closer to going live, where there's going to be, more choices, more robustness, more unique product sets where folks can do some really cool things, which will be, I just think it opens up, a whole lot of different options that folks may not know even exist on Ethereum today. But it's going to be great to bring them into Moonbeam as well.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. I think like now is the time to kind of build new stuff. And I know that on Moonbeam there are a lot of teams building like really innovative things in DeFi as well. And to your point about DeFi 2.0, you're actually kind of late. It should be DeFi 3.0 right now, because 2.0 was actually what they called Olympus, and like the rebasing token stuff. So it's like another way of making Ponzi's, I guess, like the bonds, etc. But
let's avoid the Ponzi's. Let's do that.
I mean, that thing really collapsed very fast.
Oh my God, that was like, and that that was rough. That went down within like a matter of like weeks. It felt like it all of a sudden just the bubble popped, and everybody kind of looked around and was like, what the fuck just happened? But hey, that's where innovation sometimes doesn't go the way people think, and then you kind of iterate from there and figure out what went wrong and what you can do to build something new, to kind of come out of the ashes. So
yeah, absolutely. It's if you survived, it's a great time right now, actually.
yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. And cool. Well, I don't think anybody put their hand up. I don't know, Peter, if anybody had questions.
Yeah, no request pending or anything like that.
Okay, awesome. I should have prefaced this by saying, nothing spoken here is financial advice. All the precursors that we need to talk through of this is not financial advice. This is, just a way to help educate folks and showcase some new things getting built. So, Andrey, thank you so much for joining. Was there anything you wanted to leave the people with?
Well, go on Zircon, check it out. I mean, not financial advice. Just see how it works. And obviously check out our docs as well to kind of get a better, I would say, sense of how it works, like systems deep down. And thank you, Nate and Moonbeam, for hosting us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, everybody, for joining. Andrey, thanks again, and good luck out there.
Yeah. See ya.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.